Hello, welcome to this edition of Quick Hits brought to you by the Basketball Soapbox. I'm your host, Daniel Daly. And what brings me back today, I've been away for a little bit of promoting other stuff like that. Ring Takes, my new podcast with wrestling with my good friends Brian and Lewis. Thanks for the support on that. I have some other videos going up today. But I want to bring me back to basketball, actually, and talk about this Kyrie Irving trade request of him wanting out of Brooklyn now. Woj reported that about midday today that he wanted out of Brooklyn, um, basically trying to sever ties with the Brooklyn Nets after contract negotiations break down. Chris Haynes came out afterwards and said, hey, there were some clauses in there that the Nets wanted to meet in terms of like a championship for Brooklyn that will give Kyrie bonuses to meet the max dollar amount or whatever the case may be. Basically, Kyrie Irving said, to hell with you guys, I want out. And that's basically, I understand it from both sides. Now, Kyrie Irving has come back after that controversial video that he shared, and after all that, apologizing, coming back, basically making amends with the Brooklyn Nets. The Brooklyn Nets have been on fire since Kyrie Irving has come back with Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant has been out for the past month or so with an injury, but Kyrie Irving has been playing phenomenal, basically carrying the Nets so far, even though their record has been up and down since Kevin Durant has been out. Kyrie Irving has been spectacular. Flat out spectacular. Nick Claxton has been awesome. The shooters are shooting around them. Joe Harris, et cetera, et cetera. All these guys are shooting. Ben Simmons has been an afterthought, really not been able to catch on. That's nothing new so far this season. But Kyrie Irving has come back and held up his end of the deal, right? Now, he's the all-star starter for Salt Lake 2023 in a couple weeks. Kyrie Irving feels like, hey, I've done my part. I've come back. I've played. I've been the good soldier. I've been good in the press. I haven't caused any controversy since I've been back, which is usually not the case for Kyrie Irving right over the past couple of years. But from his standpoint, he's like, yo, I'm an all-star. I'm averaging 25, getting five rebounds, 5 assists a game. Yo, I've held up my end of the bargain here. You guys got to come and meet me at the middle of the table and let's break bread. I'm willing to stay here in Brooklyn. Just, give me the max dollars. And Brooklyn, from their standpoint, I understand. Kyrie Irving has not been the most reliable, injury or controversy off the court. Kyrie Irving is not the most reliable guy in history. He's the most enigmatic superstar probably in basketball, right? Like this guy has been a thorn in their side for the past couple of years. And now coming to the max dollars to commit nearly $200 million to a guy who's not always there, a guy that's injury prone, a guy that's unpredictable, that can cause havoc at any point in time, and especially after this contract negotiation. Here he is again, demanding a trade, putting the Brooklyn Nets in a situation where they have to make a decision now. They obviously have to trade Kyrie Irving or lose him to nothing, especially going into the second half of the season, even with Kevin Durant coming back. To potentially see Kyrie Irving not be on the team, he can possibly sit out. You don't want that, especially when you got Kevin Durant there. You're trying to figure things out. You have to stay afloat. I'll get into that in a little bit. But just looking at it from those perspectives, I get it from both sides. Now, Kyrie Irving has played this perfectly, right? Basically playing the good soldier, getting to the point where, hey, we need an extension talk here, and that didn't happen. Okay. Now, there's a week before the trade deadline. Hey, I want to trade. I want to get out of here. Now, maybe this is his way of getting to the Lakers, right? Now, there's always been reportedly that in this past offseason, hey, he wanted to go to the Lakers. Understandable. And especially from the Lakers standpoint, they're in a situation where they have Russell Westbrook have his big contract. They really don't have another way to get better without trading their big two, which I don't think they're going to do. So now the only option is to trade Russell Westbrook, right, for the Lakers, right? And you're looking at his contract and his fit on the team. It really doesn't fit. But Kyrie Irving does. Kyrie Irving's a shooter. He's a creator. He can score with the best of them. He's Showtime. He's box office. That's going to bring everybody to the arena and Staples that's already there. But it's going to be even more box office, even more eyes on the TV. The Lakers are going to be in business again and be in the top seeding for the conference, right? Now, the requested trade there that people are saying that have been floating around is Joe Harris, Kyrie Irving for Russell Westbrook, and one of the Lakers picks or whatever the case may be. For the Lakers, that's a done deal because now you add shooting, you add Kyrie Irving, who's box office, a better fit on the floor, Joe Harris, who can come in and play with Anthony Davis and LeBron James especially. But if I'm the Brooklyn Nets, do I really want to pair Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant together again? Is that relationship mended? Hells no, I don't think so. I think there's a lot of animosity there and some things underlying the table that may never get resolved, right? And especially team-wise, they already been there, done that. I'm not necessarily sure that they want to do that. Now, if the Lakers put up 2 picks to make this happen, which I don't think they will do, what's the point of that? Especially if Kyrie Irving's going to be a free agent potentially in the offseason, whatever the case may be. You're basically hoping that other teams don't offer him a big contract where he stays and extends and stuff like that if he gets traded. The Lakers have that in their favor as they're the only team desperate enough right now to want Kyrie Irving and especially be on that type of contract, especially. But other destinations that are possibly there are Dallas. People have been floating out Dallas, and he'll be a nice addition next to Luka, right? Kind of filling in that Jalen Brunson role. Not there on the defensive end, but mainly on the offensive end where Dallas has struggled really getting some creativity in their offense. Kyrie Irving is basically Jalen Brunson on offense, but boosted up to all-star elite level, right? Like he's a guy that's going to get you 30, 40 points, right? Jalen Brunson was steady for Dallas, but Kyrie Irving's offensive game is just another level, right? So he's going to have those things. It gives Luka a breather. I understand that. Now, Dallas doesn't really have their picks due to the Kristaps Porzingis trade that they gave to the Knicks, right? So how does that work in terms of what are they able to offer? Maybe a pick or so down the line. Tim Hardaway Jr.'s contract has been floated out there. They can add a couple other things to make it happen. That's probably the best fit for Kyrie Irving next to Luka, another guy that's a superstar. We've seen Luka get to the Western Conference Finals, right? Kyrie Irving will be an extra boost next to him, and that gives Luka in Dallas a big boost to their offensive help. Now, looking at what the franchise wants, I don't know if Dallas is going to make that move unless Luka goes to them and say, hey, go get Kyrie Irving. I need somebody in here. I've been doing this long enough. I need somebody next to me. It really be his first power play on the franchise, right? Basically getting Kyrie Irving there. Now, is Mark Cuban going to go for that? I don't know about that. I think Don Nelson's son is still there. I can't remember her name. I think that Nelson is still there. But are they willing to do that and invest in Kyrie? And are they going to put up with that nonsense? I highly doubt it. Another potential landing spot has been Miami. Kyle Lowry, some other players there that can probably help the trade happen, maybe some picks in there. But I don't really see Kevin Durant in Brooklyn saying, hey, yeah, let's get Kyle Lowry. We'll make it work. We'll make it happen, whatever the case may be. People have also floated out 3-team trade deals where Utah gets involved, of course. Kelly Olynyk, Kyrie, and Joe Harris go to L.A., and then I think Mike Conley and Beasley go back to Brooklyn. And I'm like, I don't see how that works for Brooklyn. Of course, Mike Conley at this old advanced age, at this stage of his career, you're not really going to re-sign him. Malik Beasley's not really a catch unless you can get some picks in there. I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't see Utah giving up assets to do that. Maybe you do that if the Lakers 2 picks come. Maybe you do that. I'm not necessarily agree with that because now you're giving LA all that firepower, right? You're giving them all that firepower. Those picks are really not going to be there, especially with a combination of Kyrie, Davis, and LeBron, or whatever the case may be. If LeBron leaves or whatever, you still have Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving there in LA. I don't see them doing that. So there's so many limited options, right? Maybe some other teams can come in there and try to make something happen. I don't see Houston doing that. That doesn't make any sense for their franchise. I really don't see any other teams outside of those 3 teams actually trying to do something there. And especially for a guy like Kyrie Irving, who was looking for a max deal, which one of these teams outside of the Lakers are going to give him a max deal at that point in time? But Kyrie Irving played this perfectly in my mind, waiting until the last minute to pull the trigger. Hey, I don't want to get traded again. Like let's break up now. Let's not waste this time. Let's get out of here. Like I don't want to have to drag this out more than what it is, right? And from the Nets perspective, they're kind of like, shit. Like we're in up shit's creek right now. Like, how does this impact the rest of the franchise? Like, we can't afford to tank, especially after the James Harden trade where we gave all our picks to Houston. Houston holds all their picks. So Houston's sitting there like, hey, thank you, Kyrie. Let's mess this up even more. They have a bad record. We get their picks. We have more options to make down here with the young guys and stuff like that, with Jabari Smith, Jalen Green, and Kevin Porter Jr. all these things down here. Go ahead and mess up that franchise. What are we losing by that? Nothing. Houston is basically benefiting from this right now. And Brooklyn, who had traded James Harden for Ben Simmons, hasn't gotten anything from Ben Simmons, right? And those picks, you can't afford to be in a bad position, right? You want to try to get as much assets as you can to benefit your next run or whatever the case may be, or in a potential turnaround to rebuild, right? And basically with that, that brings me to my next point. What's next for Kevin Durant in this? Like, where does he play a part in this? Him and Kyrie don't appear to be as tied to the hip as before, where Kevin Durant has extended his deal. He's there for the next 3 years after this one. So there's a little bit more leverage with Kevin Durant than Kyrie Irving right now, right? But then I was starting to think, if you trade Kyrie Irving and you don't get the assets that you need, you ultimately have to trade Kevin Durant, right? Like, this is going to be the end of it, right? Kevin Durant has some years on him. He has some leverage there. You guys can get more assets for him, some picks, some whatever the case may be. And I started thinking, where could he go, right? Like, people have floated out Phoenix and stuff like that, the usual suspects that we had when he demanded a trade, right, in the offseason. And this really puts Brooklyn in a bind because now they have done everything, right? They fired Steve Nash. They brought in Jacques Vaughn, who seemed to have control of the locker room so far the past couple months since taking over. And now that's completely gone with this trade request. Now, if Kevin Durant is on the trading block, I'm like, who could he go to, right? And I started thinking, why not Portland, right? Portland, that stability there with Dame Lillard. I know their organization is in a state of flux with Paul Allen, I believe, sister taking over, whatever the case may be with that. You don't know the direction that they're going to go or sell or whatever is going to happen with there. But that franchise seems to be at least committed to Dame, right? Committed to trying to put something together to make it work, right? Kevin Durant going to Portland, maybe for Anthony Simons, Shaedon Sharpe, or Shaedon Sharpe, Jeremy Grant, and a couple picks, whatever that variation is. Kevin Durant and Damian Lillard are a dynamic duo that would be awesome together, I believe. Really sitting there and setting the tempo for Dame, letting the franchise letting him know, hey, we got your back. We got somebody in here to play next to you. That's something that can ultimately happen now. And especially with Kevin Durant, the certainty with Dame. Dame is loyal. He's going to be there. He's going to be there day one. You're going to have a guy that's going to try to show up every night, be next to you, be there every night, unlike Kyrie Irving, unlike James Harden, who he's had in the past, unlike Ben Simmons that he's had in Brooklyn, right? And now you go out west. That basically pushes Portland up to another level, right? Like, to have Kevin Durant, whatever variation of that trade that happens, that's insane, right? Like, Kevin Durant, Damian Lillard, all that offensive firepower. Kevin Durant's nice on defense, so he'll be able to fit in there on the front line next to Jokic, right? So, and if the Jeremy Grant is still on the roster, you still have that flexibility of that there. Gary Payton II, who I haven't seen play this season, right? But he could potentially come back and get a big role there. So there's some avenues there with Portland that I can see, and especially on Brooklyn side, if you can get a pick, get Shaedon Sharpe or Anthony Simons, you have some young core to pair with Nick Claxton. If you get Jeremy Grant, you can decide what to do with him in the offseason via sign and trade or whatever the case may be, what you want to do with him. But at least you have some type of avenue where you kind of accelerate your draft picks, right, with Anthony Simons and Shaedon Sharpe, right? That would be the ideal situation right there. Another situation there, people are going to say Miami because they have the contracts that can do it. I don't think Brooklyn's very interested in Tyler Hero, a Kyle Lowry, or a Duncan Robinson right now. And I just started looking around the league. There's not really many options out there. Maybe the Pelicans. New Orleans has been in this situation where multiple guys have been out. You're not really going to put Zion on the table, right? Like, I don't see that happening. But Brandon Ingram, a bunch of picks that could go to Brooklyn. New Orleans has a bunch of picks. They can make the contracts work with Devontae Graham, Brandon Ingram, a couple other guys. I wouldn't want to try to throw Herb Jones in there, but that might have to be done in order to make that happen. That's something that can possibly do. But those are the two teams I see potentially, if everything falls down, that could administer the services of Kevin Durant. Portland, and especially New Orleans, they have CJ there. They have Zion there. Valanciunas there. Trey Murphy there. And he seems to have a good group there building. They've been trending downward, of course, because of injury. Zion, Brandon Ingram is just trying to get his feet back wet now. There, CJ was out at a point in time. is this something that they can possibly do to accelerate their playoff push, their ascension? Right, they were one of the top seeds in the Western Conference before losing 10 straight just now. So that's something that can really help them. And I think I can see that as a potential landing spot for Kevin Durant. He can look at that and say, hey, I got CJ here, who's a professional here, who's a vet, who's a bucket getter. I got Zion here, who's a monster. I can fit in with this team. Kevin Durant can really fit in anywhere, right? But that would give them an extra dynamic, a real scoring boost, a different look to the ultimate team of the Pelicans, right? So that's something that they can ultimately do, right? Kevin Durant could be the savior of New Orleans, right? After all this turmoil in New Orleans and uncertainty and injuries and stuff like that, could he come in there and play that part for a franchise that's new, fresh, looking to be saved, looking to be accelerated? And when you look at what they've done in the playoffs, right, they've showed that, hey, we're ready. We're ready, especially if they're healthy, especially if Zion's healthy, they're ready. They were able to give Phoenix a little bit of trouble last year in the playoffs, right? So there's some options there that it could happen. Do I see the Clippers stepping in? That was back to Kyrie, actually. Kyrie with the Clippers, is that something that they can put together like Luke Kennard? They don't really have any picks after they give all their picks to OKC in the Paul George trade. Is that something that they can do to accelerate that? I don't see how that can work in terms of what Brooklyn would want out of that deal, right? But in terms of fit with Kawhi and George, it's definitely an upgrade over Reggie Jackson. It's definitely an upgrade over John Wall. So seeing how that can fit and seeing how his scoring output next to a Kawhi and a George, where their offense gets stagnant, especially with those guys there, he can still Kyrie has been able to distribute in the past. Not a typical playmaking point guard, but he's going to be able to have some creation there that they desperately need, and they have the defense around him. Clippers are one of the best defensive teams in the league. That can work there. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, but the Brooklyn Nets are on the clock, and it's not draft time. They have to figure out a way to trade Kyrie Irving, and I think he's going to go to the Lakers most likely. If he ends up in Dallas, that will be intriguing. That changed the tone of the Western Conference tremendously. And I can't wait to see how this plays out. But the Nets are on the clock. They got until February 9th to make a deal for Kyrie Irving.